Have you ever felt as though life was using you for something you couldn't explain? You make plans, you chase dreams, you build, lose, rebuild. And yet, beneath everything, something else seems to be moving. Something deeper than thought, quieter than will. What if that something isn't you trying to live life, but life itself, trying to live through you? You've been told that you're the one in control, that you make choices, take risks, and shape your destiny. But what if every step you've taken, every loss, every breakthrough, was never yours to control at all? Carl Jung once said, "You are not living a life. Life is living you." Most people hear this and nod as if it's poetry, but it isn't poetry. It's the truth most cannot face. Because if life is living you, then the one you think you are, the identity you defend, the plans you hold, the pride you protect, is not the author. It's the instrument. Every moment you call random, every event you call unfair, every victory you celebrate and every loss you resent, none of them are mistakes. They are movements of a larger intelligence, working through your existence to make something unseen seen. You think you're reacting to life, but you are life reacting to itself. You are the mirror in which existence watches its own reflection. This is what Jung discovered after years of diving into the depths of the human mind, that life isn't a string of accidents, nor a punishment, nor a reward. It's a precise process, consciousness becoming conscious of itself. And you are that process. You are not a person simply having experiences. You are the experience itself. Every heartbreak you've endured, every silence you've misunderstood, every joy that felt too brief, they weren't interruptions. They were instructions. Each moment shaping the awareness that calls itself you. When you suffer, it isn't life going wrong. It's life trying to awaken itself through the pain. When you succeed, it isn't life rewarding you. It's life learning what it means to expand. You are not a being separated from the world. You are the world made conscious, the universe folding into awareness, the infinite trying to know itself through a human form. So the question has never been, why is this happening to me? The real question is, what is life trying to see through me? If that question unsettles you, let it. Because what you're feeling isn't confusion. It's recognition, something ancient within you remembering what it has always known. Stay with that feeling. Because once you understand what Jung truly meant, you will never see yourself or your life the same way again. Everything that happens to you is not random. It's not chaos. It's communication. Life speaks a language few people ever learn to hear. Jung called it the process of individuation, the movement of consciousness making itself known through you. You think your story is personal, but it isn't. It's archetypal. It follows the same structure as every human story that's ever been lived. You begin life unconscious. You don't know who you are or why you're here. You move through the world like a dreamer lost in their own creation. Then something happens. A disruption, a loss, a wound, something that forces you to ask questions you never meant to ask. And that's when life begins to reveal its true nature. It doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your consciousness. It isn't here to please your ego. It's here to wake your soul. Every person you meet, every joy, every heartbreak, all of it has one purpose: to make what is hidden visible, to bring the unconscious to light. That argument that tore you apart, that disappointment that crushed your plans, that betrayal you never saw coming. Each one was designed, not by chance, but by necessity, Because you cannot heal what you cannot see, and you cannot see what you refuse to feel. Life uses emotion as its chisel, suffering as its sculptor. It shapes awareness from the raw stone of experience. When Jung studied thousands of lives, he saw the same truth repeating itself, a sacred pattern beneath every struggle. The pattern of consciousness unfolding. A precise, psychological symmetry where pain isn't the opposite of growth, it's the instrument of it. What looks like failure is often preparation. What feels like chaos is often alignment. What you call coincidence is often design. You're not separate from this mechanism. You are the mechanism. You are consciousness learning what it means to be human. And everything you resist becomes the doorway to what you need most to know. Life is not happening to you. It's happening as you. Every emotion, every mistake, every fleeting joy, they are the fingerprints of awareness taking form. Once you see this, you stop asking, why is this happening? And begin to ask, what part of me is life trying to awaken? Because nothing in you is random. Nothing is wasted. Even your silence has meaning, and maybe the truth is simpler than you think. Maybe you were never meant to understand life. You were meant to remember that you are life, remembering itself. The greatest illusion you live under is that you are separate from life. That there is a you here, and life out there. A person trying to survive a world that happens to them. But Jung discovered that this idea, this sense of I, is only a fragment. It's the smallest part of you pretending to be the whole. He called it the ego. The ego is not evil. It's necessary. It's how consciousness learns to say, I am. But once it believes it's the center of everything, it becomes a prison. The ego wants control. It wants to define, to categorize, to claim ownership over what cannot be owned. It says, this is my success. This is my pain. This is my life. But in truth, none of it belongs to you. Everything you think you own, even your thoughts, are borrowed movements of life passing through. The ego resists this truth because its entire identity depends on separation. It survives by drawing lines between me and everything else, between mine and yours, between right and wrong. And yet, this illusion of separation is the root of your suffering. Because the more the ego tries to control life, the more life resists control. The harder you try to hold on, the faster things slip away. The ego wants comfort, but the self, the larger consciousness moving through you, wants truth. And the tension between them creates what you call your life. That's why your greatest challenges often come right after you think you've figured it all out. Because the self doesn't want you to stay safe. It wants you to wake up. When you begin to notice this battle between ego and self, you start to see your life differently. Not as a series of failures or victories, but as an ongoing conversation between illusion and awareness. Pause here for a moment and ask yourself, what part of your life right now might be the self trying to wake you up? If this question speaks to you, subscribe and stay. Because understanding this next part can completely shift how you see every struggle you face. The ego says, I am in control. The self whispers, you were never meant to be. The ego demands answers. The self offers silence. The ego fears loss. The self uses loss as a teacher. And when you begin to trust that process, you stop fighting life and start cooperating with it. Every breakdown becomes a breakthrough. Every ending becomes a return. Every loss becomes an invitation to see what you truly are, beyond the mask, beyond the story, beyond the I. When the ego finally surrenders, what remains is not emptiness, but clarity, the stillness where life finally begins to breathe through you again. If you look closely enough, you'll see that every moment of your life is a dialogue, a constant, invisible exchange between two voices, the ego and the self. The ego speaks loudly. It demands. It wants to be heard, validated, understood. It says, I want, I need, I deserve. It builds its world through words, labels, and control. But the self, it speaks through silence. It doesn't need to convince, because it already knows. Its voice doesn't echo in thought. It moves through intuition, synchronicity, and the quiet pull of meaning. Most people never notice this conversation. They believe the ego's voice is the only one. But every time you've felt a strange inner resistance, that quiet feeling that something is off, that subtle knowing you can't explain, that was the self speaking. You can hear it when you're still enough to listen. It shows up when plans fall apart, when what you wanted slips away, and what you needed appears in its place. It whispers through the patterns that keep repeating, through the people who mirror your shadows, through the emotions you try hardest to avoid. The ego says, I'm losing control. The self says, you were never supposed to have it. The ego says, this isn't fair. The self says, this is necessary. The ego says, why me? The self says, because this is how you awaken. Jung called this tension the axis of life, the very mechanism through which consciousness evolves. Your struggles aren't interruptions in that process. They are the process. Every argument, every heartbreak, every sleepless night, it's life refining awareness through friction. Without that tension, there would be no growth, no awakening, no you. You are the bridge between the finite and the infinite, between who you think you are and what you actually are. And that bridge is built through every experience you resist. So the next time you find yourself asking, why is this happening to me? Remember, it isn't happening to you. It's happening between you, between your ego clinging to the known and yourself, calling you into the unknown. When you begin to see your life as that conversation, everything starts to make sense. The people who hurt you, they were messengers. The losses that broke you, they were awakenings. The patterns that haunt you, they're lessons waiting to be understood. The ego fears silence, because silence reveals truth. But once you learn to listen within it, you discover that nothing in you is an enemy. The ego is not a mistake to destroy. It's the partner through which the self becomes known. When these two finally stop fighting, when ego learns to listen and the self learns to guide, you begin to live not as two voices at war, but as one harmonious consciousness, life finally aware of itself. Every human life is a story, but not in the way you think. You aren't the author sitting outside the narrative. You are the story itself, unfolding moment by moment, discovering what it means as it goes. Jung realized that humans don't live reality directly. We live our interpretation of it, the stories we tell ourselves about what reality means. Two people can live through the same event, and one calls it tragedy while the other calls it transformation. The event doesn't define the story. The meaning does. Since childhood, you've been writing without knowing you're holding the pen. Each belief, each experience, each unhealed wound, all became invisible lines on the page of your psyche. Somewhere along the way, you decided who you were allowed to be, and who you must never become. That decision became your plot. Your life has been following it ever since. the people you attract, the jobs you choose, the cycles you can't escape, they all serve the same unconscious script trying to make itself known. The ego thinks it's in control of the story. It plans, it edits, it tries to make everything make sense. But the deeper author is the self-writing scenes your ego would never approve of, introducing characters you'd rather avoid, erasing what you thought was essential, all to show you what's truly real. Jung called these unconscious patterns personal myths. They're not fantasy, they're psychological architecture. They're the framework that shapes every choice, every reaction, every dream. And unless you make the myth conscious, you don't live it. It lives you. Every myth has its archetypes: the hero, the victim, the seeker, the shadow. Sometimes you play the rescuer, sometimes the one who needs to be saved. Sometimes you fight the dragon. Sometimes you realize the dragon was guarding your treasure all along. When you finally recognize the pattern, something remarkable happens. You awaken from being the character and step into being the conscious storyteller. You realize you can rewrite the story, not by erasing the past, but by understanding it. Every painful memory becomes a metaphor. Every failure becomes foreshadowing. Every loss becomes transformation. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this story trying to reveal about who I am?" Life was never meant to be a perfectly edited script. It's a living myth, constantly revising itself. Each day, consciousness adds another sentence through you, and with every act of awareness, you change the ending, because the truth is this: you are not the story you were told. You are the one who can wake up inside it and realize you've been the author all along. Wholeness. It's a word that sounds peaceful, simple, almost soft. But Jung discovered it's the most demanding thing a human being can ever pursue. Because to become whole, you must face everything you've spent a lifetime avoiding. You were not born divided. You came into the world complete, radiant, unfiltered, pure potential, wrapped in consciousness. But to survive, you had to separate yourself. You learned what was good and what was bad. You showed the world what it wanted to see, and buried everything it didn't. That buried part didn't die. It became your shadow. The unspoken emotions, the unclaimed desires, the forgotten instincts that still shape your choices. And life, with perfect precision, keeps placing you in situations designed to reveal those hidden parts. Every conflict, every heartbreak, every failure is a mirror reflecting what you've refused to see. You think life is punishing you, but it's inviting you to come home to yourself. Wholeness is not perfection. It's inclusion. It's realizing that your light and your darkness are not enemies, but partners in your evolution. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, not by adding more to yourself, but by reclaiming what you've left behind. It's not about self-improvement. It's about self-integration. Every person you meet, every experience you resist, every emotion you suppress, they're all fragments of you trying to find their way back into consciousness. You cannot become whole by denying your shadow. You become whole by turning toward it, by listening, by understanding that what you fear most is often the doorway to your freedom. Pause here for a moment. Ask yourself, what part of you have you kept in the dark? What feeling, memory, or truth have you been running from? If this question stirs something in you, if you feel that quiet ache of recognition, subscribe and stay with me. Because what comes next is not just knowledge, it's transformation. The shadow does not dissolve when you ignore it. It waits. And when you finally turn toward it, it doesn't destroy you, it completes you. Because inside that darkness lives everything you thought you'd lost: your courage, your creativity, your passion, your peace. The parts of you that were silenced are the very ones that hold your power. To become whole is to forgive yourself for fragmenting. It's to look at your pain and say, I see you. You belong here too. And in that moment, you stop seeking light and start realizing you are the light, shining even through your shadows. There comes a moment, subtle, almost unnoticeable, when life stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something awakening through you. It's the moment when the question changes from, why is this happening, to, what is life trying to see through me? Jung called this realization the birth of consciousness. It's not an idea. It's an experience, the deep, unshakable knowing that you are not separate from life. You are life, becoming aware of itself in human form. Every joy, every loss, every breath, they're all the pulse of the same universal rhythm echoing through your nervous system. The storm in your mind and the calm in the ocean are not two different things. They are the same consciousness, expressed in different ways. Your fears are consciousness, learning, courage. Your heartbreak is consciousness, learning, love. Your confusion is consciousness, learning, clarity. Everything you live, everything you feel, is the universe touching its own edges through you. Jung realized that even suffering is sacred, because through suffering, the infinite discovers what it means to be finite. How could light ever understand its brilliance without the experience of darkness? How could eternity taste time without stepping into a human heartbeat? You are not a person trying to awaken. You are awakening itself, moment by moment, thought by thought, experience by experience. The self, that vast center of being Jung spoke of, is not something you reach. It's what's been watching from within all along. It's the silent witness in your laughter, the stillness behind your tears, the awareness behind every thought that says I. When you finally feel this, even for a second, the illusion of separation cracks. You begin to see that every other in your life is simply life speaking to you in another voice. Every person, every place, every challenge is consciousness reflecting itself back, saying, look, this too is you. You stop trying to fix yourself. You start listening. You stop running from life. You start letting life move through you, and in that surrender, something extraordinary happens. Your pain becomes wisdom, your fear becomes awareness, and your ordinary days become holy ground, because when life becomes conscious through you, nothing is ordinary anymore. Every moment becomes sacred, a quiet miracle unfolding in slow motion. You realize that you were never meant to master life. You were meant to merge with it, to stop being the wave and remember you were always the ocean. Wholeness isn't something you find, it's something you remember. You were never broken. You only believed you were. You spent years searching in love, in success, in other people, trying to become something more. But the truth is, you were always enough. You just forgot. Life isn't asking you to become perfect. It's asking you to become real, to embrace the parts you've exiled, the ones you called weak, unworthy, unlovable, because those are the pieces that complete you. Those are the fragments of your divinity hidden inside your humanity. You see, the journey has never been about changing who you are. It's about seeing who's been here all along. The quiet presence behind every thought, every mistake, every victory. Jung called this the union of opposites. When the light and shadow, ego and self, human and divine, finally stop competing and start dancing. When you realize that your flaws are not failures, they're fingerprints of your uniqueness. That your pain isn't punishment, it's proof that you've been alive enough to feel. You are not here to escape your humanity. You are here to illuminate it, to show that consciousness can live inside flesh, that divinity can walk as a human being and still love, still cry, still doubt, and still rise again. Every act of awareness you've lived so far, every surrender, every awakening, every heartbreak has been leading to this moment. The moment you see that you are not the storm or the sky, but the space that holds both. You are the silence that watches it all unfold. This is the wholeness Jung spoke of. Not the end of your journey, but the realization that the journey itself was sacred, that nothing was wasted, that every path, even the painful ones, was life guiding you back home to yourself. So now, take a breath. Feel the life moving through you. That is not just breath, that is consciousness breathing itself awake. And when you step into the world again, carry this knowing, you are not a small being trying to survive existence. You are existence, vast, eternal, infinite, learning what it means to be human. So live fully, speak honestly, love deeply, and when the noise of the world grows too loud, return to your silence, the one that heals, the one that remembers, the one that simply is. If this message resonated with something deep in you, don't let it fade. Subscribe not just to this channel, but to your own awakening. Because the journey doesn't end here. It begins every time you remember that you are not living life. Life is living you.